I'm Carolyn Malachi. It's time that we talk about the plant with many names. Mary Jane, bud, herb, tree, weed, cannabis, and so many others. Across the country, states are revisiting the legality of the substance. In this podcast episode of Unerased Black Women Speak, we are exploring how Black women-created cannabis businesses are fighting against stigma, providing opportunities for those left behind, and finding success with this controversial plant.
I'm Ebony J. McGee Anderson, and I am the COO at Josephine & Billy's.
Hi, my name is Whitney Beatty. I am founder and CEO at Josephine & Billy's.
Welcome to Unerased Black Women Speak. You both own Josephine & Billy's cannabis shop in LA. What inspired you to start this kind of business?
I'll let Whitney tackle that one because I think this was definitely her dream that I jumped on.
And it's my dream that I dragged her into. Come dream with me. My journey into cannabis is not very traditional. I did not grow up using cannabis. I grew up in Detroit in the 80s in the middle of the war on drugs. Nancy Reagan told me to say no to drugs, and I believed her. I didn't think Nancy was going to lie to me like that. I didn't use it in high school, didn't really use it in college. We don't see a lot of Black representation in cannabis. I was working my way up, putting in 16-hour days. I had a situation where I was sitting at my desk and I started feeling heart palpitations, chest pains, and I couldn't breathe. And I thought I was having a heart attack. I thought I was dying, but I didn't want to die there at my desk because I thought that might really hurt my career. So I literally thought it was going to hurt my career. So I drove myself to the emergency room, parked where the ambulance is parked, and went in and told them I was having a heart attack. They hooked me up to the EKG machine and they were like, lady, you're not having a heart attack. You're having an anxiety attack. And I was like, well, that's not possible because I'm a type A personality and we don't have anxiety. And they're like, look, Trick, you've got anxiety and you have to figure out how to deal with it. And it changed my life because then I had to literally find out how to deal with it. And they started putting me on a lot of different medications and I didn't like any of them. And then a doctor in an offhand comment was like, well, have you looked into cannabis? And I was like, because for me at that time, she could have been saying, you looking at heroin, drugs were drugs were drugs. But what it did was it made me do my research. I did my research on two hands. One of them was looking into the plant. And I learned about CBD, THC, and the entourage effect, and terpenes. And I was able to find a cannabis regimen that was able to help my anxiety and take me off those medications completely, which was amazing. But even more so, maybe, I started doing my research on why I felt so negatively to begin with. And that took me back to, the 1400s when I learned about sway through women who are using cannabis in childbirth and cannabis being used for 3,000 years as plant medicine. In the 1920s, it was more widely used than Tylenol. And I learned about Harry Anslinger, who was responsible for prohibition. This is a man who said reefer makes darkies think they are as good as white men. And I learned about the war on drugs. And, and that was the part that I saw where we went from 40,000 people in prison for drug-related crimes to almost 500,000 people in prison, an 828% rise in Black women in prison. And all of those things, how that changed my perception of cannabis and plant medicine. And it changed the game for me. It made me really interested in the space and what the plant could do. And more than anything, I wanted for people, and especially women of color, to be able to take that journey of learning about plant medicine without having to do all the research that I did, without having to do as much of a deep dive and make that information so hard to find. And that to me was the spark for Josephine and Billy's originally. As Black women, we have been doing this, for other companies, for other brands. Why can't we do this internally and really turn this into something that we've never seen before? And I was like, girl, you crazy.
And she was right.
Meet our first wise woman, Hope Wiseman. In 2017, she became the youngest Black woman to own a cannabis dispensary in the United States.
My name is Hope Wiseman. I'm the co-founder and current CEO of Wiseco, which is a Black woman-led multi-state cannabis operator and brand portfolio. And we are most known for our retail brand, Mary in Maine. I wanted to get into the marijuana or cannabis industry mainly because of the huge growth that I knew the industry would experience. these next, 20 years, I knew that my opportunity would be at the ground floor level. And because that every state had different laws and different pathways to licensing, I knew that this was my time. Once federal legalization happened, that would be too late for me. Likely would be priced out of the industry. We're seeing states come on board with adult use every single year, every election year, whether it's through a ballot initiative or through legislation. I've seen the industry go from just a few states and hardly any East Coast states to major East Coast states like New York coming on board. The real culture of the cannabis industry was built on the backs of plenty of brown and Black people that were disproportionately targeted because of their involvement in the cannabis industry. We're staying committed to it. One, at our retail level, every retail store that we have and the one that we're currently operating are deeply going to be engulfed in their communities, their local communities. We aim to find the issues that specific community is having and help to work to alleviate those. On the production and manufacturing side, we really are looking to partner with minority entrepreneurs.
I am definitely crazy, very naive.
Let's talk about that naivete and the craze. And I'm very curious about how you take this energy and that intuition and you handle obstacles, Ebony. And then also doubt in itself is a major obstacle. We read that you doubted this enterprise could even work.
So I had started in cannabis by accident because I was working as a planning manager for a city consulting that wanted to do cannabis. And they were very excited about cannabis, and they were one of the first cities to really have a program. And so I noticed in just working with the city that a lot of operators coming into this space were either new operators or they were existing operators in the traditional market. And so they were what I call like the conversion business. They were going from the unlicensed or unregulated market to this new regulated market. So that's where I started. I was intrigued with this concept, and I saw that the regulations were being modeled after the alcohol ABC regulation. So I knew one thing, which was I knew how to do compliance. I knew how to do permits because I had been doing them for years and years and years, over a decade at that point. But I didn't know a lot about cannabis. I assembled a team of very young professionals, a lot of millennials, Gen X, Gen Zers that were straight out of college and were like, I'll take on cannabis because it was a way for them to have a job. I developed my business and really started focusing my planning business on licensing and compliance for cannabis operators. And that's really where I got my start, is converting these businesses that were previously in the unregulated market. Hey, let's make this dispensary and do it from the lens of a Black woman.
The dispensary is named after two Black performers, two Black icons, Josephine Baker and Billie Holiday. How do you honor the legacy of these two women in community through cannabis?
The store is named after Josephine and Billie because they were two women who rejected the mainstream. They wrote their own rules and they held the door open for other women who would come after them. And for us, that is goals AF. That is what our ultimate level of what we're shooting for. In store, what does that look like? That looks like women of color being able to come in and see themselves depicted in photos on the walls. It's coming in and seeing a store that's designed by terpene profile, which is a much better way to determine how cannabis is going to make you feel. I host a class every other Monday that's called Tea and Terpenes, where we literally go through a Cannabis 101 class. And we're going to talk to you about what is sativa, what is indicas, what is terpenes, what is your endocannabinoid system. Women of color are the most stressed cohort out there, and we have the least access to healthcare. And when we do have access to healthcare, the doctors are not listening to us. So having safe access to cannabis within our community becomes a critical health issue.
We started this. Whitney had her vision board. We always talk about her Pinterest board, but she had a vision of what the store would look like and how it would function. But for me, I thought about the store in terms of the physical location, right? And how we become the part of the fabric of the community. So what's surrounding us, what's coming, what's going, and how do we become members of this community? We do a lot of community events. We do a lot of education. We really focus on outreach because we know that we have the responsibility of teaching our community about cannabis. I don't want my mom or my grandmother to go into a cannabis retail store and talk to a 25-year-old Chad about fibroids or about menopause or anything else that is plaguing our community or women. They are not going to feel safe and they are not going to feel comfortable having that conversation. Our store is designed so that we have a one-on-one experience. Our store is designed to slow down that process. So when we have seniors coming into our store, they don't feel overwhelmed.
Mucha Chisaka is a cannabis advocate from Washington, D.C., by way of Zimbabwe.
My name is Mucha Chisaka. I go by Mucha for short. I am a model, a marketing consultant, and brand strategist, and I am a legal cannabis advocate because I am a PTSD warrior, I like to call it. I'm a sexual assault survivor, and I have OCD and cyclothymia, which are scopes of mental health conditions. And cannabis has helped me in extremely, extremely pivotal and dynamic ways, and it's something that I just advocate for here in the United States, but also back home for me, which is in Zambia, Africa, because it's just something that I've seen a huge need for, not only for public health issues, but also just as a socioeconomic buffer that can help in so many ways. How cannabis has really helped my health and helped me maintain that health, especially when it comes to my mental stability, is it's provided me space to be able to explore very, very big emotions and very, very difficult situations, just as far as panic attacks, as far as help with my menstrual health, as far as help with my diet as well. And so there's just been, I like to call it a smorgasbord of different things that cannabis has been able to help. And I think it's because I started to really fold into learning about my endocannabinoid system and just really understanding how does cannabis match with my homeostatic balance and how can I naturally fall into more holistic practices. And I've seen a night and day difference from when I used to use chemical drugs to help me manage my mental health and to help me manage my physical health. I've seen a change in how I behave. I've seen myself able to manage my anxiety. I've seen myself able to eat more when I can't. I've seen myself able to have conversations. Even now, I definitely took a little toke before having this conversation just so I can be a little bit more comfortable. It's just been a night and day difference. Cannabis is definitely a wonder plant.
We read that you stock up on big name brands like Jay-Z's Monogram and smaller labels like Cosmic View and Agua de Flor. But tell us a little bit about your inclusive supply chains and how you've continued to diversify your inventory even through the COVID-19 pandemic.
We definitely put a emphasis on making sure we bring in Black, brown, women-led, LGBTQ-led brands.
We don't just stop at mids because they're the easiest to get off the shelf, but we know that we have to balance the interests of our consumers, which include their budget. So we do try to find very good quality products at an affordable price. But one thing that we've been able to do really well at Josephine & Billy's that I think other stores will even more so than before model is create these brand partnerships. And so we have special discounted pricing with some of these bigger brands because we make the argument and plead our case that we are on MLK. Okay, so you got to be realistic. A lot of the legacy brands got pushed out by MSOs, multi-state operators. So we have these giant corporations pushing these small craft cannabis operators out. And so what we try to do is find a lot of them to fill our menu because they have very good high quality products, but they don't necessarily have the same price tag as those big household brands that we all know. You can trust that when we say this is great, it's going to work. We do a lot of work at Josephina Billy's to make it a safe place for new users, or particularly women and people of color, to find a safe place to have access to that information and a safe place to find products.
We take our job seriously in that regard.
Ebony Anderson, Whitney Beatty, owners of Josephine and Billy's Cannabis Shop in LA. I'm on my way. Thank you so much. You've been phenomenal. Our Culture Pop is a poem by Atasha Ashaki Renee Williams entitled Weed is All That I Need, performed by Barbara Winder of Detroit, Michigan.
All that I need is weed. Weed is all that I need. Jah made it from a seed. It's all that I need. When I wake up in the morning and nature start calling, I go get a drink of some water. I reach for my marijuana. Don't know how this could be wrong. When I blaze, it make me feel strong. Nicest thing to do in the life, to make love and blaze with your wife. Ask all the doctors. Marijuana does cure seizures, chronic pain, and medical disorders. It works all across the borders, but they will never say the truth about indica. I hear it also cure cancer. Help me granny out with she glaucoma. But you prefer drink and burn out your liver. When I come home from a hard day of labor, don't want no Henny or Johnny Walker. Roll out and blaze up the ganja. Me wife done cleaned out the grinder. Don't know why they don't legalize the ganja. Like we do like Jamaica.
Thanks for listening to Unerased Black Women Speak, made possible by support from the Craig Newmark Philanthropies, the Park Foundation, TD Charitable Foundation, and anonymous donors. Our theme song is Unerased by Carolyn Malachi. We had help from Joya Jefferson Nuri, Joshua Levi Perrin, recording engineer Ashley Donald, Alyssa Davis, Alex Kavoris, Jovita Hill, Rosemary Mealy, Marisol Bello, and social media coordinators Antoinette Miner and April McKellar Perry. Our audio producer and host is Carolyn Malachi. Gwen McKinney is our creator and executive producer. All of us at Unerased Black Women Speak invite you to tune in to our next episode. While you're there, please subscribe and visit us online at unerasedbws.com.